if you want to see it. But I normally wear a full turban when I go out. Hello, everybody. Hello, Sam.
Hello, Sam.
Hey, Sam.
Good to see you.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me okay? Hello, hello?
Loud and clear.
Okay, it looks like Doug can hear me.
Hello, we hear you.
Looks like Gene can hear me. Glenn can hear me. Okay, good. Heiner, Jaswinder, Lucy, Doug, Glenn, Gene.
Sam, I'm just showing what I showed then.
Your audio dropped off for me. Did everybody else hear
that? I switched. You are invited for dinner. This is the salad, and everything else is in the oven.
I'm the salad?
Would you like to be the sauce?
I can be saucy, yes.
Yes, it's going to be a special meal of diving into some great material and knowledge and interesting work. So a good many-course meal, maybe you can call it.
By the way, early apologies because the laptop I normally use where I have a good high-resolution camera is down because there's something wrong with the battery. So if the video is not good, I can try and use the video that's hooked up to that one and replace it.
Looks as good as the other, to tell you the truth.
Oh, I'm gonna try and turn this on.
You see, I wonder if you do some screen share, because when you do screen share, the resolution.
I'm having trouble hearing Heiner.
Yeah, he's sort of breaking up a bit.
Okay. I'm hoping that you don't do screen shares when you don't have high resolution.
Well, screen shares wouldn't be affected by cameras regardless. So I would vote for proceeding, and if there's a problem, raise it when we confront it rather than in the hypothetical.
Okay, got it. Welcome, Josh.
So give it one more minute and then.
Hey, good to see you, Josh.
Good to see everybody here. I'm just trying to eat lunch real quick. I'm trying not to be rude.
Speaking of that, I picked out a dinner last night, and I'm still uncomfortably full from dinner last night. One of my son's friends is here to pick up a puppy this weekend. So he's flying off tomorrow morning back to Sacramento with Aphrodite. So we had dinner last night. We're spending the whole day today here trying to bond with Aphrodite. So we went out for dinner, and I let myself become too gluttonous last night. So Doug, in Harry's absence, Harry had been performing the kind of host/moderator role. Is that something you're comfortable with, or is someone else willing to take that role?
I can certainly do that. I'm not quite sure what's involved given the medium, but I'm happy to do that.
As Tammy explains it, just so that Tammy, when she's the hot seat person, doesn't have to think about ambient noise, about how the topics flow, whether or not people check in, check out. You're very familiar with all those things, I think.
Absolutely. Not a problem.
And one of those things might be when we get going. And by the way, I am recording in gallery view. So if anyone else would like to record or is able to record in speaker view, that would be awesome.
Did you
I can
already?
try that.
Yeah. Did you already give me hosting
I can
privileges?
make you co-host. I can make you host.
Okay. No. Co-host is fine. I just wanted to know whether I could record.
Yes.
I'll do a record. Well, Glenn, if you'll do the record, that would be great. Then I can keep it in gallery view, which should be better for
Well,
host duties.
Hey, so one more logistical thing that I'm not aware of. Hey, Gene, what time zone are you in?
Gene, you're muted.
East Coast of the U.S.
Ah, okay. So you and Doug are co-time zonus. Hello, Gertrude.
Welcome, Gertrude.
yeah, a good number of people here today. Really looking forward to it. Just listen to your last session, the big first, a little more than an hour. So really interested in so much of what you shared. A lot of questions and ideas about it, I guess.
Thank you, Glenn. In fact, that not to
Wonderful.
Doug, but covering some of those questions from the first or second session might be a very good way to start.
Well, that's actually, I'm still carrying where I left off, which was the theme being the human systems as opposed to the technology systems side of the divide. And so without putting any English or affect or influence on where you go with that, I'd love to, if you could sort of start with a little bit of the more meta around that.
Glad to, in the way that I understand it.
Yeah, and maybe also contextualize its difference as you see it relative to the technology, the technology tool system side of that. That would also be valuable to have.
Cool. Well, I do know it's, 09 after the hour. Shall we start with some check-ins before I launch into those set of questions?
It looks like Josh would like to.
So, I'll be honest, it's a quick check-in for you, Sam. I've been trying to get in touch with you to get the email for the Global Challenges Collaboration.org so I can install that really expensive theme and take all the work they did before.
Got it.
Picture.
Got it.
So this was just
we
me
connect right
harassing
after
you to
this.
come here. I just wanted to say that's my check-in. I just came to harass you because I can see your face. Now that I've done that, I can't wait to listen to the third part.
Gift me the theme. I understand. That's cool. There's Alex. Wow, everybody's picture shrunk.
Who else would like to check in? Ask questions if you're not familiar with the format of the Saturday Journey.
I guess the only person here that wasn't previously familiar with that format might be Gene. So Gene, are you up on?
I've been here the last couple of days, so.
But that was a different format, right? That was probably Thursday Open Space and Friday Experiment.
Yeah.
Both of which I missed.
Okay, so this Saturday is, we refer to as barn raising, and the Saturday Sprout and conversation was started in principle for those in the group interested in getting their arms around the platform that hasn't been built that everybody wants for collaborating with each other. and you're the first person that actually responded with a laugh, which is I take as a recognition response of the impossibility of that.
I don't know. Lawrence is working really good.
Yeah, there are a whole bunch of people that have been working on it, are working on it, will work on it in the future, I'm sure. So we've been over, I guess almost a year at attempting to get to base one, which is everybody knowing what everybody's pieces and contributions and personal constructive generative attachments are, constructs are, contributions are, and did not seem to be working our way any closer to knowing that or achieving that. So we started an experiment. Sam is the second person in what some folks have referred to as the hot seat. I sort of prefer to refer to as the person on stage. And the construct is basically simple, that each person who wants a turn has the stage on a completely unconstrained, non-prescribed basis to share themselves, their work, their gifts, what they bring to this endeavor for everybody else. It is 100% revolving around time and attention focused on receiving from them. It's not dialogue or conversationally framed, but the people who are receiving are obviously coming from a place of generative curiosity and are invited to ask questions and dive in service to really understanding what the person who's presenting is sharing, and that the person who's in the share on the stage seat has that seat as long as it takes for them to feel like they're complete, they've shared everything they want to share, have to share, as comprehensively and profoundly and extensively as possible. Feel satisfied that they've been heard and that they've been understood, and that everybody in attendance, conversely, feels they've received all of that download and have as close to an equal appreciation, understanding, and awareness of the presenter's offerings as it's possible for them to have. And then when that person yields the stage, the next person assumes the position. There's no constraint from the standpoint of time. So as many Saturday sessions as somebody needs, wants, or takes, as many sessions as they take, and people who attend or show up have tacitly acknowledged and accepted the idea that they're in for the long game, that our mission and goal is to be here in service to the presenter. And at some point along the way, each one of us will have an opportunity to also be the presenter, and that we as a cohesive group will always support that person and be present and accounted for to support that person going forward. So that's the construct of these Saturdays. And currently Sam is in the seat. And this is round three. Round three. So there are 2 previous Saturday sessions of Sam that you could refer to, look up, and screen. And people may or may not be aware of this, but it is possible to play back videos from the GCC at higher than 1-to-1 speed. You can actually speed them up to 1.5 or 2 times their normal speed and turn 2 hours into appreciably less time to listen through. So I also wanted to share that because in these sessions in particular, it's helpful, valuable to go back and know that you've got somebody's complete offerings under your belt as we go. For everybody at the end of the process to end up fully up to speed, and everybody to be aware of everybody else as fully as it's humanly possible to do so. And Gene, for your purposes, if so inclined, before Sam is the second person, Tammy went first, and there are 3 or 4, I think 4 rounds of Tammy that would give you a sense of Tammy. And with that, I'm done. And on the framing, if anybody wants to add any color, you're welcome to. And if not, then Sam, you're off to the races.
Unless, of course, we want a round of check-ins.
I can say a few words. So I'm really glad to be back here. I haven't been able to join the calls for the last week, but I've had a wonderful week. Been a summer meditation retreat with 16 people, and yeah, it was just totally magical. And I have followed a few of the conversations on the messenger thread, and I had taken the first deep dive with Sam, and it was very, very interesting to hear you talk about your childhood and the grandfather and his legacy and the expectations that came along with that. And so today I began to listen. So I think I heard some more than an hour of the Saturday session because it's been really hectic all week, so I hadn't had time to listen to anything. And I wrote some things down, and I think it was a lot of very fascinating music, your interest for music, how you've been this conductor, and then a lot about Douglas Engelbart and his ideas of an evolution of how we use the tools. So the human system side and the tool side, and how we can evolve the way we use the tools, the way we use the technology, and evolve it in a way which puts the human being at the center, and where we can learn from the tools and the tools can learn from us, and then there can be this virtuous feedback cycle of co-evolution, and where of course our conversations and sharings with each other will be other co-evolutions within that greater co-evolution. And that's the process that you described there, and which was Engelbart's big dream with the knowledge repository and how we could build on it by different variations. And that was something else that struck me when you talked about how there could be repositories of many variations of a formulation. So you wouldn't have to delete anything. It seems like a system which really sees every item as fundamentally valuable, and where there's an information system where all the experiences can be included. So I found that very, very interesting. Your question, how do we want to live, and how this question has been ignored and use of the Silicon Valley culture, you described how that culture has underestimated the human system side, maybe talked about it, maybe really wanted to do well, but haven't given it the attention it deserves, I guess is the point I get out of it. And that there's certainly missed opportunities, big opportunities for how the human being can be at the center. I mean, it reminds me very much of Doug's vision. Doug, which is with us here, which talks about the human being centered technology. And so there's some really clear convergences here. and I feel totally aligned with all this thinking too, that there's this co-evolution of technology and humans and communication, and where we learn how to be good. And that then you come into a community of impact, and how it's only just one rule if people get together and they just try to be good as they understand it, and according to their best understanding then, which hopefully is evolving over time. And if we can be honest and open about it, we can just share our learnings and adapt to the understandings, and there will actually be real evolution of understanding. And that seems to be that big dream, which all of this is sort of dancing around, I feel. And this has been, I feel that, yeah, like Josh says, very much related to his project of these blogs and these blog networks, and what we talked about, we're sharing that. So that's kind of interesting to notice here too, that this is really in line with a lot of the things happening in this group too. And so that was a few of the things I noted. And I love the question, what kind of conversation can we have to include tool systems and human systems? What kind of practices, values, principles, protocols, and to really go into those questions and try to figure it out and build the plane while beginning to fly it. It's full. So yeah. So this, and then of course the evolution of language, the how-tos, the ways, memory, assignment, and how to also include this. So obviously it's a very big project, but it's a very inspiring dream, and obviously you become really interested in this big dream, and so Engelbart's work was not in vain, because he passed on the fire, and it's still burning here. So yeah, so with that, I think let's keep it burning.
Gertraud, I had a pretty tough week. My husband is home after together 3 weeks. And yeah, yesterday I had to pick him up, so I couldn't come. For me, when last time when you were sharing about your music career, that was very impressive. And it happened that just 2 days later, a very good friend of mine had his birthday. So I called him in Romania. And then he was talking about how music achieved what all people try to do. And yeah, and he wants to write a book about it. And I thought, he has to talk to Sam. It was like, it was so clear that, and so I invited him in the group, and I shared the TED Talk. And so I've been working with him for a few years, as he was practice leader in Romania and me in Germany for business consulting firm worldwide. So we were just starting in our countries, and he came home from he was working Microsoft, a physicist, so yeah, to transform Romania, and he's really doing that. So it's, yeah, so I'd love him to have some time to be here and to share, and I hope you can meet soon, Sam. But this, I don't know how I say it. I think it's a crucial part of who you are, being a musician and a conductor. And I think that infuses also the work you do. It's not separate. It's not, okay, I messed that up. So, yeah, I think that there is something in that supports us all. And maybe with Don, we could find out what that is. And that really touched me. So, and maybe you were not meant to be just a conductor, but to use all that to conduct a far bigger thing. So, and Glenn, I mean, I'm just blown away by your capability, your ability to summarize, take out the important parts, so we don't have to say anything about on top of that. But when you said I will have a short introduction, I said, okay, I will look what short means for you. Yeah. So thank you, Sam, for sharing all that with us. And I think there is something like an eagle's view to bring that all together and have it really playing out well.
Yes, I also like this idea of the conductor. And as we played with Fleming Funch on group dancing, formation dancing, or in other environments, there's even one more than the conductor. It is the Mozart, the Brahms, who are conceiving such big pieces. But I really like us being more the jazz jam session, to really be very, very interactive and to really be terse. So I think we should really be aware of the time we take and the time we steal. So I'm listening now as I'm cooking.
I can go. I've had a strange day, but I'm not sure I could share anything very coherently about that, so I'll hop over. It feels like this is all about Sam, so there's no need to talk about myself. I love what you just shared, Gertrude. I also had this, I don't have a special connection from Romania, but I also had this real strong feeling of listening to you talking about the musical part, that there's so much more in there. I can't really give any explanation, but I just have that feeling. So I'm hoping that you're going to talk a bit more about that today. But yeah, otherwise, just happy to hear part 3.
Spent about an hour with Lawrence today, looking at Sutra, and I think that we should be using it. It's a marvelous piece of environment that he's developed. It's a lot deeper than it looks. Has the potential to overcome some of the difficulties we've had with discussion groups forever, in that they're typically divergent in nature, and the environment allows one to go through and mine the nuggets of understanding out of it and coalesce them into something that someone can come and digest in a short period of time. We used to have discussions that were 700 and 800 posts long that no one would ever read, and there was essentially no way for a new person arriving to figure out where it was that we were, so that we would end up having the same discussions over and over and over and over again every time a new person showed up. So I think there's an enormous amount of potential there, and we should be moving in that direction rapidly with some very focused topic targets. And I spent some time yesterday and today wandering around all of the various and sundry pieces of GCC, and I'm appalled at the lack of order. Okay, I posted something and I just had this marvelous, thought-provoking exchange with Alex. Thank you, Alex. I hope I wasn't too rough. I like to be coercive sometimes, just to provoke thought. Though I have a whole bunch of people I would like to invite here. The difficulty is I don't know what I'm inviting them to. I mean, it's chaos, and I think that they would not stay very long. So rather than invite them, I will wait for a while. And if we don't figure out how to pull things together, then I'll probably be gone. So I'm a very impatient person. Well, I'm patiently impatient. How's that? So that's my intro.
Thank you, Gene.
I'm having a very lazy, meditative day. Only popped out once today. Been on my own. Feeling very spaced out and kind of connected. So, thank you very much, and please carry on. I will listen.
I'll do my quick check-in. It's early hours of the morning in here in Australia, and I've been listening to quite a few different versions of what we're about. This is a social network. It's like if you're not engaged in developing something that's going to be useful to achieve some objective, then you're just going around in circles, and you've got a social network happening. But that's my check-in. I guess it's interesting to observe quietly. Thank you.
Sam, with that, I think we've heard from everybody. I think you're up.
So, in one quick response to any impatience that sits in any of you, I'm going to go right to the end game and then connect the dots to the end game and see if this is one way to have the conversation. You could say, and I will say, that there are 5 reasons I'm really involved here in GCC. And each of these reasons is not really going to make sense until we dig into it. But I'll just cover those 5 initially and see whether that's one way to answer Gene's question. Which is, by the way, a question that has been asked many times, as Gene has observed, and it's not easy for a newcomer to actually come in and find out what it is that GCC is all about. And that theme has appeared multiple times, and Gene is right to raise it again, because it is hard for him to find what we're all about on quick perusal of what we have posted. So before I connect the dots, here are the 5 reasons I'm really involved here in GCC. As with many of you, I want to help shape or form, or in a sense live and exemplify the society that we want to live in. So we have an opportunity, although it's a very niche community, it's an opportunity to be an exemplar, of what we want the world to look like when we interact differently. By differently, I'm referring to Doug's frame of industrial versus non-industrial. We could actually talk about the use of words there as well. But we want to be that community that actually treats each person with respect, with love, with connection, with support. And again, those are all values that could each themselves be hours and hours of conversation. But that is reason number one why I'm here, is that we wrote this proposal in September to say we want to come up with what those global governance models are, but rather than waiting for an approval, waiting for an award, waiting for any share of the $5 million, we said, we're just going to do it. And that's how these conversations started. We're trying to figure out, how do we want to be with each other? That's number one. Number two is, and again, this is going to take some dot connecting. Number two is, I think that this group has a potential to be what I'm calling the community of impact. And what I'm calling the community of impact is that set of people, not everybody on the planet, maybe 0.0000001% or even fewer, but I'm looking for some small set of people who really want to be the ones we've been waiting for, who really want to practice what being good means to them. Not what somebody else says being good is, but what each of us decides being good is. And that more than deciding, that we actually live it. We're explicit about how we want to do good, and we're explicit and accountable to ourselves whether or not we actually met our own standards, our own definitions, our own guidelines, protocols, principles of what good means. And that accountability extends not just to oneself, but to two other trusted people. I picked two because it's a minimum necessary network kind of a model. If you've got more than two, that's great. But I really request that people who want to do this have two people, and not just anybody, two people who really know you, who you know, who love you, whom you love, and are willing to say, nah, that's bullshit. Let's go deeper. And really, really hold that accountability so that you become better at doing that good that you want it to be. It's a way of expressing care and love for someone to actually help one see this. It's not a confrontation, it's an assistance, it's an acceleration, it's a support, and it is a love. So that's reason number two. I think this community, of all the communities that I've been in, has the potential to find a few people who want to start practicing these protocols, principles, ways of being, these ways of living. That's number two. Number three gets back to the original reason why this group exists. It's called GCC because it responded to the Global Challenges Foundation request for a proposal on global governance models. And rather than saying, oh, let's change democracy to something else, like holacracy, adhocracy, whatever it is, okay? We wanted to re-examine what it meant to make these agreements among each other as a society. And by agreements, I really mean down to the lowest level. So something I'm calling micro-agreements. A micro-agreement like, we'll have a conversation on Saturday, a conversation that is recorded, a micro-agreement that says we're going to share these recordings, a little micro-agreement that says we're going to check in first, a little micro-agreement that says maybe we're not going to interrupt each other unless somebody goes on and on and on and on, with the exception of these kind of hot seat formats, et cetera, et cetera. There are these little micro-agreements that I think I'm hoping we all examine, discuss, and come up with, and then codify and share with each other and live to, that hopefully can scale to some global impact. So that's reason number three, is I'm still with the back of my mind on exactly why we were brought here, which is, can we, as this exemplar kind of mini community, come up with micro agreements that then scale so that we can come up with global governance models. And these models are not static. Anything that's going to persist has to be flexible, has to be adaptive, but cannot be weak. So there's the fine balance, you know. The Constitution of the United States, one could hold up as one example of something that has stood for 200 plus years. That's basically an instant in historical terms. Other civilizations have lasted much longer. But it seems to have some of the new protocols and principles that we seem to like. And yet it's resulted still in a society that has not been working for most people. So we have to think about how to be different with different microagreements. Again, that's reason number 3. Reason number 4 is that, as Glenn mentioned, this theme of evolving our own human capabilities as we evolve the tool and technology capabilities, and that each needs to inform and influence the other, is a theme that we call human systems, tool systems, coevolution. That was Doug's term. Well, when I look at what we've been doing, and Doug looks at what we've been doing up until he passed away in 2013, and we look at how technology has been, quote unquote, innovated, adapted, adopted, and changed, it has worked wonders as far as any measurable way we want to look at it. But can we say the same thing about our human systems? We don't necessarily think about how we need to be different when the tools we create for ourselves give us more capability. So we don't necessarily internalize and live the fact that as we're given new capability, we ought to learn new skills so that we can actually apply and leverage those tools and technologies much more effectively. I mean, when we talk about music, for example, the cool thing I think about music versus this conversation format is that in music, everybody's got a voice almost at every single moment. Here, in this conversation format, with the restrictions it has, one person has a voice, other people are expressing in facial response, body response, gesture response. Yes, you can play your body as an instrument this way visually, but at least the audible channel creates noise when more than one person speaks. So we're still kind of restricted in that way. So when we have these conversations, we've all noticed what a difference it is to be able to see everybody's faces, see everybody's body posture, etc. Okay, interact, so you can get those cues separately from what is coming across through your ears. You know, there's still another channel available. There's a chat channel, for example, that anyone can interact with, can add to, can respond to what's being said asynchronously without having to speak. And yet there's still relatively little adoption of that channel. We each have screens that can have multiple windows. We could be referring to models, texts, documents, diagrams, pictures, maps, etc. in separate screens. We could even share them, but we've not really learned how to do that very effectively at scale in this format. So partially in response to Doug's question about this human systems, tool systems coevolution theme, I do want to highlight that we as people haven't really internalized that as our tools evolve, we need to consciously evolve. We still behave pretty much the way we behaved hundreds of years ago. We use different tools, but we think of them in old terms. It's the old Edison idea. You know, he didn't come up with a new idea for electricity that I was told the story once that he actually did not do an effective wiring for his electricity because he had to use the conduits in which the gas or oil was actually fed into his lamps in his house. So by adapting to existing architectures, he was able to introduce it in such a way that it was easy for people to adopt. So he used terms like electric flame or something like that. I could be wrong, but anyway, the introduction of technology requires hooking it into the ways people understand. But in addition to that, it took generations before we actually started talking about electricity much, much differently than we talked about the old candles and oil-based lighting systems. So that is idea number 4, is that to really examine this human system, tool systems phenomena and say, why is it that we can't in any way similarly say that our human systems capabilities double every 18 months, the way technology does? Or pick a different time frame. Maybe it's every 5 years, 10 years, whatever the time frame is. But can we even say that about ourselves? Almost any measure that we apply to ourselves about our capabilities with respect to time is technology-based. The number of emails you can get through, the number of texts you can actually get through, the number of people you can connect to via Facebook, you know? But what is it about us individually as people that truly has evolved? Do we think differently? Do we behave differently? Maybe it is. Maybe it's very subtle. But until we understand that, and until we actually explicitly try to grow that, we're not doing the same thing with ourselves that we're doing with technology. That's idea number 4. Okay, so let me just call that, how do we scale what we do so that we're more effective? And this underlies an approach which Doug took to his technology, which is he didn't consider himself a technologist. I'm talking about Doug Engelbart. He wanted to put tools into the hands of people so that the problems we can solve together, the achievements we can create together, are much more than what we, each of us, or by two, can do. That was his dream. Because he was one of the early people that says, hey, you know, if the population growth continues the way it is, unabated, if the way we consume resources on the planet continues, you know, he saw this decades ago. Other people have seen it, but Doug actually took an approach that was exemplified throughout his life to build tools so that we could actually address these problems. Because he thought for us to do this, he didn't think it was possible for individuals to come up with the solution to the planet, right? He didn't envision himself or anyone else as a Jesus that could come down and just, you know, solve everyone's problems for us. We had to work together. And for us to work together, we have to be able to communicate with each other, to share information, to share plans, to be able to share mental models, okay? And that basically says the way we handle information, the way we create new information from our senses and existing information, that's what he was trying to give us, is better ways to do that. And as I mentioned in the last call, just very briefly, instead of really taking that vision and running with it, too many people have taken specific examples of it, like multimedia, like word processing, like linking, and made billions of dollars out of it. But the grand vision of how we use all of that together and evolve our own capabilities to address bigger problems has not really been front and center. Very small groups of people do see this, but it's not what is the conversation in Silicon Valley. And it's only barely now beginning to be conversation elsewhere. And it's unfortunate that, as I mentioned, Doug viewed himself as a failure when he passed away in 2013 because he couldn't get people into these conversations. And I was there in those conversations with him. People would visit him in his Atherton home, and they would want to talk about links. They want to talk about, you know, what should links be 5 years from now? Or what should documents be 5 years from now? Do you like HTML? You know, blah, blah, blah. He was never interested in those conversations because to him, those represented technology views of what he was trying to do. They didn't represent the whole co-evolution view of what he was trying to do. He was always trying to up-level us in our conversation about this. So that's why, in order for us to understand the limitations and why we don't do this, I've collected a number of questions. Questions that are directed at why don't we do this? What keeps us from doing this? What could enable us to do this? What allows us to scale successful collaboration? And this term that I'm using, you're free to adopt or not, but I've adopted this term called collaborology, which is how we study the protocols, principles, guidelines, tools, practices of successful collaboration that scales. So that's idea number 4. Idea number 5 is much more personal. And it really has to do with the fact that most of these ideas, for me, are grounded in these conversations with Doug There's other philosophers that have come before Doug, but Doug was the one that really personalized it and lived his life accordingly to try and give the world these perspectives, these views, these tools. And so in 1968, when he demonstrated what could be done with computers, and as Alan Kay acknowledges, Silicon Valley and most of the rest of the world is still working off of that vision that Doug showed in 1968. It meant that the conversation about that bigger picture has dissipated. Doug didn't have the opportunities for those kinds of dialogues. So in 2008, the 40th anniversary of Doug's demo on December 9th, actually it was the 8th and 9th, we did a day-and-a-half conference around that 40th anniversary. I and 7 friends put together a conference at the Tech Museum in San Jose, California, to basically say, we're not done yet. Now, SRI put together 40th celebration about the retrospectives, all the work that Doug did at SRI. But we wanted to say, what's left to do? The short form of the story is in 2008, 2010, 2013, 2015, we had 4 conferences, all called Program for the Future. That were all different takes at embracing and trying to keep Doug's vision alive and trying to invite collaborators to participate in embracing and extending Doug's vision. So there's a number of people I'm in contact with that are still doing this. So that thread, this idea of embracing and extending Doug's vision and keeping it alive, keeping his inspiration alive, is idea number 5. I'm calling that Program for the Future, PFTF. So I'm going to do a slight pause because this is not a quick answer, but it is one answer, one way to answer that question. Why are we here? It's my answer to why am I here? And I know that isn't really yet well grounded in what I talked about in day 1 and day 2, but I have intended to connect those dots, but I wanted to at least give Gene a very serious response to his question. And I'll pause here for a second and take a drink. Over.
So the question is, how much of that meaningful response am I likely to remember? Doug has written a lot of it in the chat. So, if there existed a 2-page document with a 1-paragraph abstract at the beginning that contained the 5 things that you just talked about, 1 sentence each, and then a paragraph for each one of them, a new person coming to this group could absorb what it's all about in 10 minutes.
For me. I don't want to represent that that's what it is for the group. I'm talking about what it is for me. Yes.
Somebody needs to write it down so we can evolve it, okay? As opposed to everybody having their own mental construct of what it means, which means we have no collective agreement as to what it is we're about. And if we have no collective agreement as to what it is that we're about, why would anyone else ever come here?
So embedded in your question and where you just got to, Gene, is the essential challenge and the essential mission, core mission, I would assert, on a collective basis for why we're here, at least for these Saturday experiments. This is an attempt to get all from one what that one brings. Each person will have their day to do their show and tell, or their days to do their show and tell. And that with all of that captured video, Zoom also generates a transcript file that's just an audio file that's just the audio track, which is then convertible into a transcript. So we're generating the raw material, the projected individual raw data as we speak. And that seems like as rational and intelligent a starting place as any. We then need to figure out how to process that. We then need to figure out how to distill keywords, word triples and patterns and memes, and create ways for people to access it contextually based on their curiosity and their generative engagement in whatever moment they're in the future. And but this is as good a place as any to start in terms of generating the source data in a way that's not trapped inside Sam's head or my head or Tammy's head or Josh's head or your head. It's as good a start as we've managed to get to tangible cases.
And generating data in itself is something to do. But I'm concerned about the objective. Is the objective to monetize it at some stage in the future? What's the global challenge? Global challenge is to come up with a solution to the global crisis. The global crisis is a result of the old paradigm failing, overpopulation and global warming. I mean, if we're here to have a discussion about global collaboration, it's got to involve, at least part of it's got to involve the crisis the world's facing.
Well, here's the question. Here's the question I'm going to ask you in response to that. So there are lots of people that are staring in the rearview mirror. There are lots of people staring at the global crisis and chewing at it like a dog with a bone. There are some people that are actually out in forests and villages and towns and whatever, boots on the ground doing micro initiatives. There are lots of people that are pontificating, fantasizing, and writing books and selling things. Okay? I'm not interested in being a member of any of those populations. I'm interested in figuring out how do we do us differently to avoid a global extinction. That's my goal. That's my sole focus. That's my sole focus. And doing us differently can't be any of those things. It's got to be different.
We've got the tools already. We've got the network already. We've got the ground-up movement happening already. We've got a collaboration happening already, right? We've got the incentive. We've got the right people. We've got we've got the means, the mechanisms. We've got a global internet. When every one of us has got a web page, we're all connected to this internet, and the tools that are available now, the machine learning tools, the smart intelligent, the smart contracts, and the virtual tunneling networks that are quite secure, give us the ability to have an incredibly powerful social network, as well as a commercial network, if you want a commercial network.
All of that is well and true. The question is, how do you deal with the fact that you're dealing with human beings?
Well, we have to have a solution for the whole world. There can't be anything less.
No, but before you even get there, how do you deal with the human dimension that we're human beings, we have to do it?
Children understand the structure. Children understand the fact that if you unite, you're stronger. Two is stronger than one. Two people united together in a cause is stronger than one person. And the powers that want to divide us will prevent us from uniting. The dark forces will crush us before we grow. They'll kill it before it grows.
We'll try to.
Bob Marley? Yeah, Bob Marley's song.
Unless we outsmart them.
They don't need to.
Jump in there, Joshua.
Yeah, Josh, go.
I feel like I'm on CNN. I just wanted to be, one of the reasons why I come here is we don't talk over each other, and that's one of the things I love. another thing is I feel, Alex, I've been spending 4 months trying to just build a WordPress, and it took about 4 months, and it's not done. It's not, you know, it could take another 4 months, and it'll take as long as it needs to take because we're humans. Sam is a human being. He has things going on in his life. And I'm right there with you, Alex, and I'm right there with you, Gene. I woke up at 8 in the morning talking to a client on Sutra with you to help to find this discussion group. So I'm here to build a triad. Alex, Gene, if you're impatient with this, I get impatient with this because it's slow moving, and I want to move fast. Let's go, internet speed, let's go. But I feel that this beautiful, it's not a global crisis challenges collaboration group, it's a global challenges. And the challenge is, can I sit here and listen for an hour and a half? That's the challenge in our societies. Can we actually listen to each other? And that's all I wanted to say. And thank you guys for listening to me. I appreciate that. But please reach out. I've put in, you know, a base camp. Alex, you're so active. I appreciate that. And I'm here to move fast. But this, I think, is here to move slow. And it is frustrating when you're impatient, because I've been impatient for a long time. So I just wanted to say that.
Is the group collectively in a more meaningful place than it was a year ago?
Yes, definitely.
Where do I see that?
Well, it would be seen, of course, if one followed all the conversations, but that is a very time-consuming task, obviously. And
yeah, that takes a year.
Yes, but there are several ideas which have developed during the process which have really deepened in their understanding. And it's been a process where the participants have deepened their understanding of their own situation and of their own ideas, and also have been challenged with those ideas, with other perspectives, and with sometimes been trying to unite it or find points of meeting. And questioning everything in open space, we can ask whatever needs to be asked. And out of this, we've also then created, obviously, hours and hours and hours of video material, all of which can be highly valuable as a documentation of a real-life process where we're actually trying to do this, which is the possibility that Doug Engelbart talked about and that many people have talked about. And that's what I believe we're doing here. We're actually doing it. And this is what we're trying to do in the Zoom calls. And out of this, there's a lot of material which will come, and all of the material can be revised and improved and made in all kinds of variations. So there's nothing written in stone at any point. And that's the beauty of this, that we have this possibility to actually recreate ourselves in real time by using the minds of everyone in the room. That's why this is something really spectacular, which is beginning to emerge, and which is the big possibility that Doug Engelbart and many other people have dreamed about. And they say there's no reason we couldn't do it. So let's try. Let's try to do it.
Yoda said there is no try, there is only do.
Okay, let's do it then. I'm for it.
I mean, you've got a year's worth of material that you have amassed that's not been synthesized. And where will you ever find the capacity to synthesize that year that's gone by? It has to be done piecemeal, step by step, on the fly, as you go. Because, I mean, is there anybody here who has spare time? Do you have extra time? Oh, you do?
I do.
Oh, wow. All right. Then we will assign.
Gert to speak. I think Gert had something to say.
More.
For me, I think it's very valid what you asking, say, Jean. And I'm getting kind of unsettled because it's Sam's time. Not because of the content what you're saying, but because it's Sam's time, and that's why I'm here. It's pretty late here, and this is what I came in here for, because that is and otherwise, I feel my concentrations going like, what is it now? And I'm here to open my ears and provide them for Sam.
I apologize for hijacking the session. It's all yours, Sam.
Yeah, and this has place in Thursdays or Sundays, no, even Fridays, but not Saturday.
I just wanted to briefly mention also to Jean that we have also a project of connecting WordPress blogs where we actually do want to write down real synopsis. So I'm absolutely for us doing that, and I think it's really important. But I also think these deep dives are a unique opportunity to really get to know the coherence of the ideas of one human being's life work. And that, I think those two together, that could really be dynamite. And I truly believe there's a big possibility of getting something very, very valuable out of it. So, but yeah, now I think it's Sam's time.
What do you got, Sam?
I really want to appreciate these questions because the questions that frustrate Jean and that everyone acknowledges are valid are questions that frustrated me for quite a while. And while the recognition of the need has been apparent ever since we started this forum in September, there's been undercurrents and strong feelings within the group and its participants that these codifications, these writings, these agreements were too strict and were too reflective of the current industrial paradigm, the current industrial frame. And that's been a long-standing stream of conversation that has frustrated probably all parties in that topic for about a year. Where I come down on that one is that until we have agreements, we only have individuals in this group. And I use the word only because there's this implication that we want more. But a group of individuals who sees themselves as trying to build the society that we want to live in is a very important thing still. See, I think of it as I could be impatient. I could leave. But then that shows that we who are gathered here, who want to live collaboration, who want to live co-creation, are not able to do it with each other. And if we, who feel so strongly that we want to do that, cannot do that, where are we going to find it? We're going to find it in either the old industrial frame, we're going to have an old Rogers Rules of Order based organization. We're going to write minutes, we're going to write contracts, we're going to write meeting summaries, and that's the way the world is working today. We haven't evolved that very far. So I'm here despite my frustrations. I'm here thinking that if we don't do it, we shouldn't be surprised that the whole world is going to go on without us. We here have a privilege and a responsibility to see if we can level up our means of sharing ideas, our means of sharing things that last. And we've got to be able to deal with disagreements and different expectations and disappointments and different values and different approaches to things and different senses of timing. Because if in my view, we're going to exemplify this new society, all of that is going to be represented in that new society. And we can't just be so insular to start it just by working with people who are very much like me, or very much like you, or very much like name a random person. We have to disagree and think constructively about how we move forward. That's why one of the very first agreements I made very seriously to this group, whoever this group represents, and at that time it was Tammy, was, I'm not quitting. I'm not leaving. Despite any frustrations, despite any disagreements, despite any mistreatment or whatever might come, leaving is not an option. We have to figure it out. If we vote with our feet, we're looking for people like us. That means we're not looking for people who disagree and who we can then constructively find a connection with and constructively create a solution with. Now, other people can justify it however they want. They can say, oh, well, we'll go and do something quicker. We'll go and do something with more money. We'll go and do something who are smarter. Blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. For me, if we're going to be the society that we're going to live in, we have to deal with all people at all different aspects of any of those spectrums or dimensions or capability sets or anything, age, whatever. We have to deal with that. And if we can't, we shouldn't be surprised that 30 years from now, there's just a bunch of spiders and arachnids and, worms and whatever else. So that's why I'm here. I don't expect that to apply to everybody, but that's why I'm here. Now, number 3 or 4, whichever I said, which is the study of what blocks us or the study of what helps us succeed in this collaboration. Every one of these videos, every one of these conversations is an endless stream of case studies in collaboration, collaborology. Okay, we can see where somebody got frustrated. We can see where somebody left. We can see where the conversation took a violent turn. We can see where somebody spoke over someone else. Okay, that's what being on the video record or being on the audio record or being on the written record really means. Okay, I don't expect that I'm here as a perfect exemplar of what it means. I'm just here as a regular human being. So all of my blow-ups, all of my flare-ups, all of my frustrations, all of my irritations, all of my miscommunications, all of my disagreements, my interruptions are all on record. Because over time, if I don't reflect that I'm growing and learning and connecting and creating with others, then I'm not showing any evolution whatsoever. And that's going to be a sad story. I'd rather show some positive, evolution towards something, whether it's more love, whether it's more connection, whether it's more co-creativity, whether it's more understanding of collaboration, whether it's more assistance to others, whether it's more listening, any of that is something I'm willing to show. So again, thank you for asking those questions. They're in the back of my mind as well, Gene. And I've probably asked them multiple times before, many months ago. And one of my standard rants is, we don't realize we have many what I call smart people problems. Smart people problems actually get in the way of collaboration because it takes huge generosity to really understand someone else. It takes huge generosity in listening to say, well, let me see if this person is somebody I can recruit for my own project or my own ideas versus can we co-create something together? And before we can co-create, I have to understand what those other person's ideas and achievements are. And that doesn't usually happen. Even in academia, that's very difficult. One's under publication pressures, one's under, time pressures, one's under reputation pressures. All of those make that very difficult to have that generosity of showing up and listening. And that's what I'm finding very, very different about this format. There is a self-indulgence I'm feeling about taking this time. So I'm trying to express things as clearly as I know how to express in direct response to some of the questions that are being asked, because I don't want this to be an irrelevant set of discussions that one just walks away from. But having the stimuli makes some of the ideas that I really want to express find the right timing. So this idea of collaborology is not a well-formed idea, but it's a set of questions that at least has 2 results that I'm experimenting with right now. One of the experiments is something that started in 2009, 2010, that I'm calling the GCC. It's a communication and a commitment to collaborate. It's a unilateral declaration. It's got 5 or 6 or 7 parts, depending on whether you include the meta parts or not. But it's basically a handful of questions that say, I think I've heard something interesting in what you do. Here's what I think I'm doing that might be of interest to you. Here's what I think we could potentially do together. Here's how I like to work. And it's an invitation for the other to respond. So it's unilateral, it's non-binding, and I've got dozens of examples. And it comes with a preamble that I've worded somewhat carefully that is at the point 3 of version state, because I've modified it twice. The first in 2009, the second probably not much later than that, but then the last was probably about a year ago when Tammy reviewed it. So it's
What do you call the document, Sam?
It's called the CCC, a communication and commitment to collaborate. So Tammy has one for me. I have one for her. I've got some for 2 dozen other people. I've written one for Program for the Future, and it's one that Tammy's experimented with and other people are starting to experiment with. And the reason I find it interesting is it because it takes all that party conversation, that business conference conversation, what happens after the exchange of business cards. There's this very unstructured, ill-defined, very loose set of conversations that happens between that exchange of a business card and the actual cementing, and I use that word pointedly, or concretizing of a contract or an employment or some other kind of agreement, okay? That intervening time period is a period for exploration of collaboration opportunities. And I'm saying, if you truly are interested in doing that, that collaboration opportunity could be brought about possibly more quickly if you address these particular points and invite a response on those particular points. So in fact, when I wrote one for Tammy around September, August of 2017, she thought it was a powerful way to express an intention. So she responded in with a CCC of hers as well. And if you listen to her conversations and our conversations, that structure has kept us in the game. There are moments I wanted to quit, the moments she wanted to quit. But the fact that we had this unilateral statement to each other really made a big difference for each of us. And if you talk to Tammy, I think it makes a big difference for her, and she will corroborate that. So that's one. The other that I wanted to come up with, and I touched on in the overview of the 5 objectives, is this idea that I'm looking for a few people who want to do good in the world. And I don't want to tell them what good means. I want them to tell me what good means for them. So for me, good could mean a whole set of things around some very motherhood and apple pie values. You know, it could mean justice. It could mean fairness. It could mean love. It could mean democracy, right? Everybody's free to define for themselves what good means. And if you take a look at all the 50 or so terms or abstract ideas that people associate with goodness, pretty much everybody's going to say, yeah, that's good. But it's different how people spend their time and spend their lives in pursuit of one or more of these things. Does conflict show up? Does disagreement show up? Because if you're really going after something, you're going to end up with disagreements. You're going to end up with conflicts with those who are trying to do something else. Even people who are trying to go and exemplify love could come up against people who are trying to exemplify fairness. It is that possible because we each have different notions of what those things are. So it's not for me to say what good means to anyone. But I want people to really examine for themselves over and over and over what good means. And I try to do that for myself as well. And for me to say, have I really been good this week or this month or this day or this year or whatever time period is in question? And for me not to just congratulate myself, but for me to have people who know me and who are willing to say, you missed an opportunity there. Or you did this, but it also created this negative potentially negative or harmful side effect? Were you aware? Maybe I wasn't aware. In which case, can I be accountable for that? Or should I be accountable for that because I didn't really take that into account? Yes, Glenn.
Yeah, Sam, that reminds me of how you said in one of the conversations you asked, do we value excellence? And that's been on my mind. If we want to be good, do we actually practice it? And can we make sure that we walk the talk? That's what I feel is what this is about. That's a new way of being us.
I mean, this past week, thank you, Glenn. This past week, I ran across one of the old sayings that has made its rounds across Facebook, which is, if your values are not held in times of test or in times of conflict, I forget exactly how it was worded, then they're not values, they're just hobbies. So what are our hobbies? What are the items number 20 through 50 on our values list versus what are our true values? The item is probably 1 or 2 on that values list. And that's what I'm trying to clarify for myself. So if I have people, and I think Tammy is one, who questions lovingly whether I've been true to my intent and whether I have really truly been living according to my values, and cuts through my bullshit because I know she loves me, I know I love her, but she's going to help me look at what I did. I have other people like that as well, other than Tammy. But I'm recommending that each of us have at least 2 such people so that we can be clear that we are evolving and learning how to live differently. I'm not just the same person I was 10 years ago. Hopefully I'm doing better than I was 10 years ago. Otherwise, I've been wasting my 10 years, in one sense. And for me, I'll just say what good means. Good for me is a channeling of compassion, a courageous channeling of compassion, so that we can coexist. And it took me a while to get to that expression of what good means for me. And I'm not necessarily good at being good yet. It's a difficult goodness to live. One could say, geez, if I had $10 million, I could be better at being good. So I can tell the whole poor me story of why I can't do more. But at least I'm going to start here. So for me, to be able to offer the questions around collaborology and to offer the practices around the CCC and the practices around the COI, the Community of Impact, which basically summarize down to 4 things. 1, decide what good means for yourself. Explicate it, okay? Share it with your trusted peers. 2, hold yourself accountable to these trusted peers. Have regular retrospectives. You can call them peerspectives because we're all, treating each other as peers. And in holding those retrospectives, learn. That's the whole point of these retrospectives, is to learn. How did I do? What can I do, in some sense, better? Again, better is up to you. You apply your own metrics. And then the most important aspect to me is, how do we connect with others who want to do this, who are holding themselves this accountable to themselves for being good? Because if we can find other people like this, this creates strong community. Because if I have collaboration opportunities with a Joe random person off the street versus somebody I know is trying to hold themselves this accountable, for me, I'd much rather collaborate with someone who is actually holding themselves accountable this way. Because I know I can then count on certain ways of interaction certain ways of communication. And that's the cellular growth that I would like to see, is these kind of strong connections around people who are applying these protocols and practices. And by the way, this is only the current understanding of the COI. Okay, I'd like to have constant review of how this is working. But for me,
COI?
yes, the community of impact.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got a link to the 4 points around the COI, the practices. Again, my whole objective here was I didn't want a big constitution. I don't want a big declaration. I just want big font, a few words, single sheet of paper, very simple. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to understand, hard to express. So if you go to communityofimpact.info, it leads to a Google Doc that actually has this in large font, 4 main bullet points, 1 single sheet of paper, but there's also commentary that's on it because I've shared it with so many people. And I've responded to much of the commentary. And so the current form of that doc is what has resulted for me out of those multiple forms of discussion. And I'm not, again, expecting a huge adoption of this, but all I require, in my view, my estimate, is all I need is 3,000 to 30,000 people who believe that they want to do this. I think if I've got 3,000 to 30,000, somewhere in that range, we will start shifting the planet. That's my belief. I can't prove it. But I think that, there are certainly other efforts that have already shifted the planet with 100,000 people. There's some groups that have shifted with less. So I'm looking for somewhere around 3,000 to 30,000. I think it's reasonable, given that there's an emergence of this awareness that the planet is on this path, whatever path you want to describe, and that there's a need to sort of change direction or change the way we do certain things. I hope that link still works. I haven't gone to it right now, but hopefully, Gene, I think I saw you type it in. I hope it's still there. Okay, Joshua, you're saying thumbs up. Okay, Alex, you're saying thumbs up. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, Scott, when a cell divides, and if a community is growing by having friends ask other people to join, and one person creates a triad by asking 2 team members to join them, you've got a segment, a 3-member segment. But in cellular growth, as a cell divides from 1 to 2, then to 4, then 8, it's growing exponentially. So after 20 iterations, the one cell has become over 1 million. That's just 20 iterations. Half of that, 10 iterations, it's grown to something like well over 10,000. So I'd say 13 or 14 iterations, and you'd have your 30,000 people.
Sam, do you see these pieces like being in that human systems domain?
Very much.
Okay, so you see these as sort of concrete ingredients of that original formulation of that original side of the coin.
Yeah, I do. And in fact, I also see myself as a failure because after so many years, there's only these 2 very concrete things that I can offer for consideration. I would like to come up with more. In fact, my dream around collaborology is that eventually we understand it as a body of knowledge, as a body of understanding so well that we can then model it much more usefully, much more effectively. In fact, my ultimate dream around collaborology is that we evolve a language around it, a language which then is susceptible to mathematics. So we can actually create much more interesting models around the way we grow, the way we scale, the way we interact. But I'm far from that.
Be careful, Sam. It's beginning to sound like a religion.
What's wrong with religions other than that people are unconscious? It's asked facetiously. How is this sounding like a religion, actually?
Because of what's being defined, the way of believing, of behaving, and you know, religions continue to go to war with each other.
It sort of has a prescriptive energy and frame around to it, on some level. At least that's how I'm receiving it, and I think that's where Gene's, you know, invocation of religion sort of resonates, because religions have that same sort of phenomenology or attribute.
And
Josh?
If you don't want to think about it as a religion, think about it similar to systems thinking, which we tried to sell to the world for 7 decades, and they're still not. Okay? And the primary reason that systems thinking is not more broadly adopted in the world is because of systems thinkers.
Could take a much deeper view there, Gene. It's not just 7 decades. It's not even 700 decades. It's a lot longer. Greed as a system has been running forever. Democracy is a new thing. Communism is a new thing. Collectivism is a new thing. 500 years ago, we had serfdoms, kingdoms, etc. It's all evolving. The crux of the matter is we are at major crossroads presently, and they're not going away. So people like us have to come forward with some really good systems that we can all adhere to. And it seems to me that perhaps we are working toward an egalitarian, global egalitarian society. I might be wrong, it may be immature, but all these need exploring and they need space. That's all I have to say.
Josh was waving his hand and Alex stuck his finger up after, and I want to make sure they have their portion here. Josh?
Thank you very much. I just had to unmute. I just want to say I've been thinking a lot about what Sam's talking about, holding people accountable and having 2 people accountable to a third person. And when I first got into the GCC, I started practicing having this group dialogue and then moving into, group discussion, and then moving into dialogues versus trialogues individually with each person. And so I just wanted to share a story that happened to me on Wednesday, because I don't get into society very often. But I was at a birthday party, and at the very end, when they sing happy birthday to you, the guy next to me hit a note with the ooh, and it was a beautiful ooh. And I asked him afterwards to repeat that note, because it was a very nice little note. He couldn't do it. So I called my friend Les, who was just walking by at the party, and I said, come over here. And I said, this gentleman did the ooh. And so I said, if he can do it again. So he tried to do it. Les sang the ooh, I sang the ooh, and the 3 of us, the tritone, locked in back to that original ooh. We got to the ooh, and it took 2 of us couldn't do it. Took me and him to try to get the ooh. It didn't work. But when Les came over and there was 3 of us, it locked back into the ooh. So I just want to say there's something mathematically or musically that has to do with 3 people being accountable to each other's good. So I just put that into practice, and it was quite successful. So I just wanted to say, not a religion, but something that just works.
Alex?
I think that ooh was in that song with a B flat. But getting back to the religion, we've got to be careful of Scientology, or study Scientology and the spaghetti monster church, the church of the spaghetti monster that makes you all wear those funny hats. I'd like to avoid that one. But there's a lot to learn from religion, yeah, sure. Take the good parts from each religion, put them all in a hat, mix it up in a soup. Yeah. That's just, there's something else, but I'll come back to it later.
So
Yeah, we can
I
have.
want to quickly. Go ahead, Glenn.
Yeah, we could have the good parts of all traditions and build on it. Religions and everything else, but the trouble stories, well, those will be those where we can't repeat them. So that's the whole point, right? To avoid those stupid mistakes and try to learn and figure out a new way to be. And it doesn't have to be the way it's been before. We can create it and become it, and that seems to be what we're trying to do here, and that's what your plan is about too, Sam. So when you say this about 3,000 to 30,000, yeah, I mean if a substantial change could happen inside of a group like that, yeah. How do we know the consequences? I mean, it might completely change the world. And okay, let me just say simply, according to my best understanding, something like that, if it was powerful enough, if it was a truly powerful transformation of the lives of these people, 3,000 to 30,000, then I have no doubt it would totally change the future of everything that happens on the planet, because everything is connected, so every event matters, and there's no way it couldn't transform it. But concerning how it would transform it, we don't know at all, because it's far too complex. But maybe we don't have to, because we find our way of being, and that seems to be the agreement which has emerged among the people here in the GCC, that it's about a way of being us, a way of being me and you, and a way of talking and listening and trying to actually learn together, which is what many of those religions haven't managed to do. And maybe it's something people have always wanted to do, but it's been difficult to do it. But even if it's difficult, it can be possible. And that seems to be what we're trying to do, and that's what you're talking about, Sam. Would you say so?
See, I got triggered when Gene used the word religion. But the more I understand the explanation behind it, I got less triggered, because that criticism could apply to any agreement. The reason I don't think it applies
Absolutely.
here, this is an opt-in. As I say, I don't expect everyone to adopt this, but I would expect that some small number of people find this useful to experiment with. And there is no promise I'm making about the end game, whether it's paradise, whether it's heaven, whether it's 76 versions. I'm not making any promises. I'm just saying, if you want to do good, try this. And I'm not there with a hatchet or a club or a belt or any contract or any legislation to hold anybody else accountable. You're holding yourself accountable if you want to learn, if you want to do good, if you want to make an impact, if you want to make connections with others who want to make that impact. That's all I'm suggesting, and it is only a suggestion. I'm the last person who wants to prescribe a big systemic solution on the world. I think out of the ISSS and others, yeah, we've seen attempts, but people seem to resist this imposition of structure, except when it comes by big promises of heaven, or when it comes with big promises of immortality in some form, or promises of any number of virgins, in the afterlife. It's so creepy. It's so manipulative. I'm not promising any of that.
So I want to sort of stay in case and context. And at this point in process for you, number one, how are you feeling? And what's your experience, if you can articulate and share it, as far as you have gotten? And secondarily, I know you've got more to share and to drill down into. Two things. One, will you? And two, how powerfully or imperatively do you feel the desire or the need or the drive to do so? So that's, I guess, sort of three questions in a row.
I'm not sure I understand all.
So the first is, how are you at this point? Like, how are you feeling? And the reason I'm raising it is because it's 5:42, so we're coming up to the 2-hour mark. And as everybody knows here, it's not a hard 2 hours, but I want to respect people's time too. I know, I'm tired in Kingston, New York. I can't imagine how the folks in Europe are feeling. So, but I also want to sort of, check in with you on this stuff.
I actually feel quite good. I really appreciate the interaction. I think that if everybody agreed with me, this would be rather useless. I like the disagreement. I like the back and forth. I like the challenges because, in a sense, I've been trying to challenge those ideas, many opportunities in the past year myself already, okay? I'm in a different mood right now because I think that I'm not speaking here to these 9 or 10 people only, right? I clearly am. But I'm speaking to hopefully a few others who may be viewing this video, who others may be looking at, hey, can I get a better sense of what Sam's been saying because he's been saying it for so long, right? So for that, I know that the questions in Gene's mind, Heiner's mind, Josh's mind are going to be in the minds of others who are viewing this video. And if we don't bring them out, it's going to be another echo chamber. I don't want this to just be an echo chamber. It's a privilege and a luxury to be given this opportunity, and I don't want to just be talking to people who think like me. If there is anyone who thinks like me. Okay, so that's the answer, I think, to question number 1. Okay, Doug, can you rephrase question number 2?
So question number 2, I think it's pretty clear that you're not done today. You've got more to bring, more stuff to present and share, and I'd love to sort of, poke that a little bit, just for you to sort of plant some seeds here that will provide a starting point and generative bed for where you start next Saturday, on the assumption you want to. And the corollary to that was, I'm curious, and this is really just sort of an aside for me, how you experience the ability to do that, whether there's as much sort of energy and imperative to have to do that or to want to do that going into, next rounds. Or is it is it a different experiential place? Sharing in this kind of container, because it's not competitive. It's not competing with a clock. It's not competing with somebody next in line. It doesn't have any of that stuff going on. So is the experience of sharing itself and what's coming to be shared different for you?
This kind of sharing opportunity is, in my view, an experience of a lifetime. It doesn't happen often. It's rare to encounter such generosity among such bright, talented, considerate, compassionate, listening people. It's very rare. I don't take it for granted. I would love to be able to go deep into some other aspects of what I offer, but it's an offer to do so, because I did spend last time and this time mostly on the human system side. I actually have been for 3 decades a technologist. So my first encounter with Doug was, hey, here's all the other new technologies we could be building that Silicon Valley is not yet building. So there's at least 5 or 6 things on that side that I have not even touched on. There's other human systems ideas, the ideas of confederation before federation, ideas about other smart people problems I've mentioned. There's a global sim as a technology. There's Tweech as a protocol. There's Mentor as a learning practice. There's just the idea of learning itself, whether or not we like learning and whether we actually believe that. There's the look towards December 2018, which is the 50th anniversary of Doug's Mother of All demos. Those are all things that I've noted that I would love to touch on. And given an opportunity, given that generosity, those would be places that I would like to take you over.
Sam, I would just want to say that I've so loved today's session, and it's just wonderful all the things that come up, and I feel that I would love to really go deep, because I remember you said that you had material for almost half a year, and if you really feel like using half a year, I mean, that would be extraordinary. I mean, just like Doug's saying, all the time in the world to really go deeply into it, because it's a life work. And for example, everything about your experiences with mapping of terrains, which have to do with the relationship between information and physical events in space, which is something we've touched upon, many of us. That I'm sure is a whole chapter, which is really interesting, and how those skills and experiences you acquired there also is kind of part of what's made you who you are, as well as this work with Engelbart, and then your experiences with language recognition, virtual intelligence, which is also a field closely related to communications, so clearly relevant in any kind of social system to have a communication system. So to really go into all of these experiences you have, and then these more specific projects which you want to do, and which, as I see it, you've really started it full steam ahead, and that's what you've been doing when you've been showing up here. And that's what these conversations are about. They're an experimental ground for us to really explore these things and really clarify our thoughts and our visions, and share and listen and learn together. And so the community of impact is already beginning to come to life, and we're beginning to do at least something in the direction of this dream. So you are talking the walk, and many are along with you, and it's been a great journey so far, and I just hope it's just gonna continue. Just continue having these conversations, continue learning, just keep coming back. And that's what you promised, Sam, to you're not quitting, you're just continuing. And that seems like a path to really realize this vision of the co-evolution. So I'm really looking forward to hearing more about your thoughts on all these things, and how your knowledge about artificial intelligence and also with mapping languages might be help for us to actually organize these systems in a way that works and works well for human beings as we are. So that's what I kind of see from everything you share. So thanks a lot for this, Sam. It's a real treat.
Sam,
Sam, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
I hear your doggies. No, I wanted to say, I asked you 2 times, do you have a plan in mind? What kind of learnings, what kind of failures, what would you like to share with us concretely? Because we understand you well as a conductor. as a lover of science or music. And we learn much more from you where you failed and where you had your learnings. So I had this idea, and I still have this hope, because this is an open-ending story here, that you come at least to 2-3 concrete offers what you feel as tools can help us. I remember Doug questioning Tammy 3 weeks ago. Tammy, what do you bring concretely? Concretely. And she was not really, as I interpreted, able to say, I'm listening, I'm facilitating, I'm juggling behind the scene, and I'm really bringing in the social fabric to keep the group together and asking different questions. So I imagined that you maybe can expand and really say where you failed utterly, because there is this learning inside. And the other thing I wanted to say, you see, I went through a deep learning curve for the last 10 days because we had some frustration after half a year, 1 year with the global communication and conversation experiments with Fleming and Tammy, that Tammy was always doing one-on-one and one-on-one, and I'm this very impatient guy. I cannot stand still. And then 2 people talk to the other and the others don't know. So I really pressured her to make a hot seat, and I was brave, bold, vulnerable, or whatever. And there, I want to tell you why I'm coming here so strong. We tried, and this was lunatic, to do it all in 1 hour, because that is the frame we had at that time. So I prepared half an hour, past, present, future, my milestones, my learnings, my failures, and the second half, what I bring to the table, my 3 legs, as I called it. It failed utterly. When revisiting it now, I mean, it's such a blessing that I can revisit it. It is such a pain, but also such a great learning that I'm coming not only to learn about you and your mental mold, how you bring it up, but how we bring it together with Anthony Judge and other Paul Otlet, Mundanarium, very early ideas of hypertext, that we build something up which is solid for scaling. And that's why I have this impatience. Same with Jean. I want to really greet you, Jean, here, because I think it's very important that we base on all these learnings done in the UIA, done around these 4 tribes of system schools, having a different truck or terrain, and one is reflecting on process and the other on boundary and the other on systems, and they have no common verbiage. Anyway, I didn't want it to talk. I had my meal and I listened and I enjoyed, and I hope Jean has a little bit more patience because it could help me. Thank you.
Thank you. Lucy, do you have anything to say?
I'm inspired by your, and this was a theme also, the first session and last week, I think, by your commitment, Sam, and integrity. I think it's a really big deal to do what you have done, to say, I'm not leaving. And I think that's a big part of the problem, that we all get so frustrated in the communication and collaborations we've been part of, and we all sense the urgency of the problems, and we let that kind of steer too much. And I think what we need to do is to commit to things and to stay in there until we start making progress. And that is uncomfortable, but I believe in it 100%. So I think it's fantastic that you model that and that you keep saying it. So I look forward to next week.
Sam, I look forward to a future discussion around my 19-year love-hate relationship with the brain.
I'll join that one.
Yes, yes, that'll be a wonderful conversation.
That would be real.
I saw some models in some of your videos.
Yeah. If you go to the brain, I've got about half a dozen that are shared, but it's frustrating to work with after a while.
And so
we need we've got a language we can use to communicate with the neural network.
My reference was to a piece of software by the Brain Technologies, and I saw some images in some of Sam's videos, and that was what I was making a reference to.
Yeah, thebrain.com if you're interested.
Yeah, it is addicting, powerful, and unbelievably challenging.
Very, very interesting software. The brain.
I'm this month for 4 weeks in a brain painting project. We've done it already 3 years ago with a patient who has ALS, so she cannot move any muscle. She is only dancing with her eyes. And there we did all this funding and whatever. And this is bringing her into a museum or into a ministry to really do something with another totally different science set and ability and means set. So I will send this link around because I think it helps you so much to think out of the box and think like a blind or just like a smelling or whatever person.
Josh?
Yeah, I'm good. Complete. Thank you. Oh, Sam,
Yeah.
just email me the password. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to next time. Just the name dropping made me curious, and yeah, thank you for this round, and especially starting to really say what you're committed to or why you're here. This really opened a lot for me, and I could resonate with all of it with my personal twist. But there was a core where I think that is why we are all here. And yeah, thank you very much. And looking forward to that. And I'm very interested in what Jean has to contribute. It was not about that. It was just this, that for me, Sam was the one to be listened to. Yeah. So thanks.
Lucy?
I just want to add something, Jean, that I really hope that you will not get frustrated and leave. I really hope you're going to stay, because I have this feeling that you're coming along bringing something that we need. Yeah, so I hope you stick with us.
Other than just the bull in the china shop?
No, but that's good. We like that also.
I should add,
So we have too much China.
Yeah, I've got a compelling reason to come back every week and be on screen, face on screen. That's because some idiots have been attacking the things I've been trying to do on the internet. The other websites have been attacked by hackers. And so there's some nasty people around in this world, and it's a worry. But if I'm here every week, you know I'm all right.
Yes, Winder, do you have anything?
Well,
Can't say I have anything to say. It's coming along nicely. I look forward to the evolution of our group into a cohesive force soon.
Can I leave the group with a quote from Lao Tzu?
Go ahead.
Always.
To know and not to act is not to know.
To know and not to act is a mighty big sin. To stand on the sidelines, no way, Jose, way.
Yes, what you don't do is as significant as what you do.
I think there's already a lot of doo-doo.
That was just a perfect conclusion.
Yeah, on that note, I think that's a perfect stopping place. Or we can just clean it up with a doobie-doobie-doo.
I was going to offer. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Josh.
I was going to say there's this thing on the internet saying people are going to hate and people are going to bring this. And a lady in our WordPress group this week said people are going to people. So it's so simple, but they're just people are going to people. They're going to good, hate, but people are going to people, and we got to love that. So I'm just saying that's my new phrase to offer to the group because I'm stealing it from my friend. People are going to people.
Okay.
I can add a quote from our late Chancellor Adenauer. When he had an assistant who was complaining about people, and then he said, "Would you take a word from an old man?" "Of course, Mr. Chancellor." And then he said, "Take the people as they are. There are no others."
And for me, and I'll close this out. But for me, we're the world. This is the world in the screen. And each one of us represents however many tens of millions of like-minded, like-aligned, like behavioral, like prickly, like emotional, like impatient, like. And so for me, this is as vital and mortal as Sam shared in terms of saying he's not going anywhere. I am committed to my time and attention being devoted to contributing to saving our world. And I can't think of a more valuable and meaningful way of doing it than figuring out how we do us here and actually get to achievement. So thank you all for being here and for co-creating this and doing this. Sam, thank you for being as generous as you are with your guests, with what you're sharing, because I know you feel like, I'm not entitled and this is indulgent and all that stuff. But the truth is, on the receiving end, it's huge gifts, it's huge value that we're being given of you. You're sharing you. Whether you know it or not, or own it or not, you're a pretty valuable guy. And on that note, I tender back control to Sam and bid you all adieu, and I'm going to go let my dogs out.
Thank you all very much. I feel this.